What's going on? Welcome to another live edition of Real Players Real Talk. Fresh off the Cali trip. What's going on, man? We got a whole lot of sports to get into. MLB playoffs in a full effect right now. Both the Yankees and the Mets looking good. NFL season is going down. My Ravens had a very good comeback win today. But before we get into all of that, and shout out to the New York Liberty, man. We got to give the ladies some love. But like I said, before we get into all that, because we're going to talk about everything, let me shout out my co-host, my brother, Eric Sanchez, a.k.a. Legend in Two Games. What's going on, man?
Bro, I know you saw my reaction as the countdown was going down. The Mets have done it again. The Mets,
Yeah.
the Mets are the modern day Undertaker. They will not die. Mark Vientos just hit a 2-run home run to tie the game in the ninth inning. The Mets just won't die. But yeah, man, shout out. I'm happy you and Ray had a great time out in Cali. I was doing your thing. I'm proud of you guys, man. And we got a lot to get into. I know the fans have been waiting.
Yeah. We definitely missed y'all last week. I do apologize, but sometimes duty calls, so I had to head out to the West Coast to do some shooting. Big shout out to our other co-host Emma Marie. Got a chance to catch up with Emma out in LA. We ran into remember Hits from the Streets?
Yeah.
On BT. We was in the spot with him while we was out there too. Big shout out to Hits from the Streets, man. Al, that's his real name. But or the guy on the couch from How High. That's y'all might know him from there as well. And shout out to Matt Barnes too. He showed us some love while we was out in Cali as well. Hopefully we're gonna see. We're gonna speak some things into existence with that one. But let's just jump right into it because I see the fans is dropping them questions in there. NFL, man, we had a nice morning so far. The parlay hit this morning. Thanks to my guys out in Baltimore, Derrick Henry. Let me tell you how crazy this one was, Eric. I had everything except for that was left to cover, except for the Ravens covering the spread, the 2.5, and 70 yards from Derrick Henry. He had 30 going into overtime. And I'm telling Jay, I'm like, damn, this ticket might be done for unless he get one of them big runs like he did last week for 87 yards. And as soon as I said that, my man Derrick Henry, who now has 10,000 plus career rushing yards, caught that 51-yarder, got the parlay for your boy, and they got the win. I'm in a great mood today.
Yeah, you and I, that game, though I'm happy for you guys that we were on the opposite ends of that bet because obviously I talked about it on the Friday Night Live. I had Cincinnati getting the 2.5, and they were in position. They had the lead. Shout out to the Ravens though, because the Ravens were down 10 late. They made some great plays. They made a great defensive play, and then all that happens, and they overcome that fumble in overtime, which Cincinnati wasn't able to capitalize on. And Ravens, I thought both teams played desperate, but the Ravens obviously wanted it a little bit more. And that was big.
Yeah, that's an absolute fact. And which made it even better is I got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in the fantasy football league, and we know even though they took that L, Joe Burrow still went off for 392 and 5 touchdowns. And Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I'm having a great day all around in my sports world, in my world, period. But definitely, the sports world. Anytime that parlay hit, it's always a good Sunday. Any surprises this week?
I was surprised. I talked about one of the teams I talked about on Friday Night Live was could this be a letdown game for the Commanders? Because all the talk this week had been about next week's game against the Ravens, right? I-95 matchup, kind of an in-state rival. And because there had been so much love for the Commanders, I thought this could be the letdown game. They handled their business. And I actually proud of the Commanders and Jaden Daniels and that young team for going out there and saying, yo, we're better than the Browns. Let's not play with our food. Let's handle our business. And they did that. So that was one of them that stood out to me. The Giants have looked good in the afternoon game. Let's see if they hold on that one because historically Seattle has been a house of horrors for them. And they normally can't even stay close with the Seahawks in Seattle, but they're hanging tough and they're up right now. So those are the two that stuck out the most to me. I'm trying to think. Denver looked good. The Bears were one of the teams. Shout out to Will Gordon. I see you in the comment section, bro. were one of the teams that we both said could be a playoff team before the season started. And I thought this would be their pivotal point. If they could get to 3-2, right in this range, that they could make some noise. You see it today, their offense is starting to click. Caleb looked good. They've looked good the last 2 weeks, and they are 3-2 with a rookie quarterback and a lot of weapons that have been injured, because obviously we know Keenan Allen's been injured this year. Rome Odunze's been injured at times. So I think the Bears, I don't want to say they weren't surprised, but they were a standout, because I think they're starting to trend in the right direction as well.
Yeah, I think with the Bears, I'm still on the fence, just because today was a great win for them, but realistically, as good as Andy Dalton had been playing the last 2 weeks, they're still the Panthers aren't that good of a team. But we know you do have to you play who's in front of you. You have to beat who's in front of you. So I do like what I saw from them. I think that this is going to be a nice little confidence booster for Caleb Williams. I finally saw a little bit of legit QB wide receiver chemistry between Caleb Williams and DJ Moore, which I think is going to be a big boost for them, because I thought that was something that had been missing. They hadn't really, been connecting like that. So, you know what I mean? I'm not sure, hopefully they can continue to build on that. And then as guys start to get healthy, DeAndre Swift, the last couple of weeks, he has gotten better and better. He's looking more like what we saw last season with the Philadelphia Eagles and what he was able to accomplish. So I do really like that. But I do, I still have to see more from these guys. Great win today, but I want to see more.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think they're not a finished product, but to me, this was going to be their marker for them, because I felt like from this point on, Caleb Williams is going to get really comfortable with that offense, and then they would start to roll. And so the fact that they weathered the storm early on, we know how bad the O-line has been. But normally rookie quarterbacks, you got to take your lumps, pause. You got to, it's going to be a lot of tough games. And the fact that they're 3-2, their next 4 games trip, I love to play the schedule game. They got the Jaguars, they go to DC, they get the Cardinals, and they get the Patriots. Those are 4 very winnable games. I mean, the Commanders are going to be the one game that they're going to be the underdog in, because the Commanders have looked so good so far this season. But the other 3 games, Jaguars, like I said, Cardinals and Patriots, those are very winnable games. And we could be looking at a Bears team that might be somewhere in the midst of, 6-3, maybe even 7-2, heading into a major game against the Packers right before Thanksgiving. So the Bears, I think, could be a sneaky team right now to pay attention to the next few weeks.
Yeah, and they're a team that we did speak about a couple of weeks ago, saying that they would kind of be borderline.
Right.
Borderline playoff team with the weapons that they had on the offensive side of the football. They're gonna have to, games like these, you got to win these games.
That's it. You got to win them.
Right, on the right track with that. But I am looking forward to, because again, especially with the black quarterbacks that come into this league, I'm very sensitive about that, because that was a position that for so long they said we couldn't play. So I'm always trying to be supportive and push the younger black quarterbacks when they come out and show them that support. So I want him to do well. But this is also, I'm not somebody who's just going to give you the pass and let you just do whatever. You still have to show improve. So I like what I saw today, though. Big shout out to Caleb Williams and the rest of that Chicago Bears offense today. They did a great job. Giants, you read about the Giants too. Giants is actually looking good today, especially without Malik Neighbors. I'm actually kind of disappointed in the Seahawks, because I thought they should have been walking all over the Giants this game without, they went from Saquon being their offense to now Malik Neighbors being their offense. I thought this game should have been an easy blowout for the Seattle Seahawks, but it hasn't been. I don't know. They haven't really been clicking. The defense started off well with the fumble return for a touchdown, but after that, it's been very slow from the offense. So
yeah, it's I mean, it's 2 minutes left if the Seahawks are able to pull off a miracle comeback, but they're down 3 right now. But it's a major letdown. And you know what? I mean, maybe this was their trap game, because they got the 49ers coming up on a short week after this, and maybe they got caught looking ahead. But shout out to the Giants, because again, this has been one of the worst places for the Giants to play. This is dating back to Eli Manning then. You know, they always struggled in Seattle. And so for them to go out there and win that game, it's impressive. And I think, you know, Daniel Jones is easy to talk ish about Daniel Jones because, you know, he hasn't played well, right? So it's very easy to say the things we've said about Daniel Jones, and it's deserving. His criticism is deserving. But
absolutely,
the last couple of weeks he has played well, really dating back to that Commanders game when they should have won. If the Giants would have had a kicker in DC when they played the Commanders, the Giants win that game.
Absolutely.
You know, they played that game with no kicker. So he's played pretty solid since that point, and again today.
Yeah, I agree. One last game that I want to get to before we make our picks for Sunday night and Monday night. How big is this Cardinals win over the San Francisco 49ers, who are now 2-3?
I think right now the 49ers are a wounded dog right now. We know about McCaffrey, but Debo I don't think is completely healthy, and they're struggling right now. The Cardinals can be frisky. We've seen them so far this year. They can be frisky in some of their games, but it is a big win for the Cardinals because if they lose this game, they're probably completely out of the mix in the division and probably completely out of the mix in the playoffs, especially like we talked about. You look at the NFC North, you got Green Bay, you got Detroit, you got the Bears now playing well. Obviously, you know about Minnesota, who's undefeated. There's going to be a division in this conference that's going to probably send 3 teams. If the Cardinals wanted a chance to be a playoff team, they had to win today. I thought they showed up, and they were one of the teams I like. I thought them getting 7 points was a little high. I talked about that on Friday. I didn't know if they could win outright, but I definitely thought 7 points was a lot, being that San Fran was a little banged up right now, and the Cardinals proved me right.
Yeah, and this was a game where, you know, Arizona pretty much got nothing out of Marvin Harrison Jr. You know what I mean? So for them to still pull this win off, shout out to James Conner. He had a pretty good game running the football, but this was really anybody's game. I will say this, you know, San Fran is definitely missing the golden child at CMC because, you know, I'm starting to get nervous now. He needs to hurry up and get back healthy. I'm just glad I didn't, you know, have the number 1 pick in the fantasy league because I definitely would have picked him. So they need him back badly.
I mean, of course they need him back. Purdy has 2 picks today, which is bad. They ran the ball pretty decently, which is surprising because normally when Shanahan's able to get the running game going, they're pretty good. And Ayuk had his best game of the season. Debo, I think, only had 1 catch. Debo didn't play well. But unpopular opinion, shout out to Will Gordon. Unpopular opinion, though, I don't know if Marvin Harrison was the best receiver in this rookie class because I look at how impactful Malik Neighbors has been, and I look at how impactful the young receiver in Jacksonville, Brian Thomas, has been. Both those guys have had a bigger impact in situations where, I mean, we thought they were going to worst offensive situations, right? We didn't think they were walking in. Like we knew Brian Thomas going into the Jacksonville situation was probably going to be the second or third option, and he's been more impactful. He had a couple big plays today against the Colts, and Malik Neighbors was the Giants' whole offense before he got hurt. And yet Marvin Harrison, outside of that one game when he had the big catches in the first half, he has not produced at the level we thought.
Exactly. So yeah, which was this is kind of why once I knew Malik Neighbors was sitting down, I was kind of glad that Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't have a good game today because I want Malik Neighbors to get that offensive rookie of the year if possible. But if going into the season, I think you would agree out of these 3 teams, the receiver that would have the best quarterback would have been Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Kyler Murray, as opposed to Daniel Jones and Jaden Daniels, who we didn't know anything about coming into this thing. And yeah, both of those guys have been much better than Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, ability-wise, we know what Marvin Harrison Jr. can do because we've seen that. But it hasn't been translating into because now, you know, what are we 5 weeks in? It hasn't been translating week by week like these other guys have. We pretty much see Malik Neighbors is the Giants offense when he's on the field. Like I don't think I've ever seen Daniel Jones throw to one wide receiver that much in his career in the NFL. and they try to get the ball to Malik Neighbors damn near on every play. You know what I'm saying? And Washington as well with what they're doing out there. So yeah, listen. We're gonna see as the season progresses, because guys also have to stay healthy as well. But as far as those 3 young wide receivers go, realistically, he'd be ranked 3rd right now.
Yeah, he has not lived up to the hype, and it's a very tough situation right now. I think in Arizona, I know they win today, but it's tough because it doesn't feel like Kyler Murray has really embraced the idea of having this young man as his receiver. We heard a couple weeks ago when he said, "Well, it's not my job to get him targets." It's like, well, whose job is it? You're the starting quarterback. Whose job is it to make sure your number 1 receiver gets targets? And I know they're rolling coverages his way, but come on, bro. There's no way you can't tell me that you can't. Either the play calling's got to get more creative, or Kyler Murray's got to find ways to make sure this young man is involved in the offense, because we see it everywhere else. Malik Neighbors is getting double teamed with the Giants, and yet somehow Daniel Jones can still get him the ball. Like you got to find ways to get him the ball. You didn't draft him this high just to be a decoy.
Exactly. Now, does that mean eventually we see a change at quarterback?
No, this financially they're too invested with Kyler Murray. There's no way. They're too invested with Kyler Murray at this point. I don't think it happens, especially if they're competitive. Now, if they're just playing like crap, then maybe. But right now, with the money that he's getting, as long as they're competitive, he's the guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to see. Hopefully it gets better. They did get the win today, which is always a plus. And one thing we do say is that winning kind of conceals a lot. So, we'll see how it goes, but you got to keep winning, though. So we'll see. Let me go to Will Gordon's comment. What it do, baby? Shout out to Will Gordon. Deshaun Watson is a disaster at this point. Stefanski says no change at QB. This is strictly business because Jameis should be in there. I agree. If we're basing this off of the gameplay, the problem is you gave this man $256 million fully guaranteed for the next 5 years. Are you going to bench him? I'm more surprised at the fact that Deshaun Watson was arguably top 3 at the quarterback position when going back to his last year with the Texans. I don't know, I don't know if mentally he just hasn't been able to get back to that point because of everything that went down. But he has been horrible with the Browns, and it's not like I could understand if he was with the Texans and we were like, oh, he's arguably top 3, and he was 35 and now he's 38. We're talking about him. He was 26 and now he's 29. He's supposed to be in his prime right now. And with the ability that we've seen from Deshaun Watson, both in the regular season and the postseason, it's crazy to me still that he's been this bad. He might be bottom 3 right now.
He definitely is a bottom 3. He's at least a bottom 5 quarterback at this point. Today, he threw for 125 yards. He averaged 4.5 yards per completion. He pretty much was throwing screen passes and underneath little drag routes all game. He has been a disaster. This is gonna be one of them reference points forever. Whenever somebody talks about, oh, should we trade for a high-profile quarterback, everyone's gonna reference, remember what happened with Deshaun Watson. And this is one of them that Trip, you, me, and Will, we were all right on. Because when they traded for Deshaun, one of the points I made and one of the points that we all talked about was he never wanted to go to Cleveland. Cleveland wasn't even a finalist, right? He went there because they guaranteed all the money. He really was narrowing his selection down to Atlanta and New Orleans. And then Cleveland came in and said, we'll fully guarantee it. Some of the things that I've heard and read are that his work ethic has been terrible. That now that he's gotten the bag, he doesn't seem motivated to be the same player that he once was, as you talked about.
Makes sense.
And it's possible we see a lot of players get they become content and say, hey, I'm good, I got the bag, I don't need to do anything else. There's a terrible situation for the Browns, and I wonder if Stefanski is trying to make a point by not changing the quarterback. Because I don't think Stefanski's job is on the line. And I know some people may not agree with me. Stefanski was a coach of the year last year. Kevin Stefanski has made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield and with Joe Flacco as his quarterback. And when he made it with Baker, everyone said, oh, you can't win with Baker Mayfield. There's no way. He made it with Baker Mayfield, and they won a playoff game. And last year, when they were down to their third-string quarterback and Joe Flacco, he made it with Joe Flacco. So Stefanski isn't the problem here. It's the quarterback who, for some reason, can't adapt and can't be the leader that they need. We just saw the statement a couple weeks ago when Deshaun was like, oh, I'm not here to scramble around. I'm not here to run. I'm a quarterback. It's like, bro, you here to do whatever it takes to win the game.
Yep.
Let's keep it a buck. You're here to do whatever it takes to win the game. And it just seems like it's not meshing. It's not working. And I think Stefanski is kind of hanging him out to dry to say, look, I'm going to prove a point. This is the guy y'all wanted. This is who y'all paid all the big money to. So if he's not going just, it ain't my fault because I've proven I can make it work with other guys. And
you have weapons. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's not really, I can't even give you the bailout to say, all right, well, he is in Carolina. He ain't got nobody to throw the football to. So I can't even give you that out because you have Amari Cooper, who you see what he did with Joe Flacco last year. Okay. Jerome Ford was a beast last year at the running back position. I think, Njoku last year, what I'm saying, was incredible for these guys when Joe Flacco, took over. So you had weapons out there. He's just bad, man.
Deshaun is terrible. He's terrible.
And I don't see, maybe, what I'm saying, and that's the thing. You might say, all right, well, yeah, maybe if you bench him, let Jameis Winston get in the game, see if that kind of gets him to say, oh, hold up, let me get back on my ish. You know what I mean? But the fact that he's got that money fully guaranteed, it's just like, I don't even know if that would help to motivate him to get back to where he was. Because you're going to get that bread no matter what. Without, so I hope for the best for him, but realistically, he needs to be on the bench right now. Jameis Winston should be starting. He's been horrible this entire season. Like, I don't even think I've seen a glimpse of any, any signs of hope where I'm like, all right, you know what, this might be the one where he's getting back to his old form. Like, the reality is he hasn't thrown for more than 200 yards this season. What are we doing here?
He has done nothing while in Cleveland. Last year they got better when he wasn't there. When Joe Flacco took over, they got better.
They went on a run.
So
it looked scary.
This is all on Deshaun at this point. And that defense isn't as good as they were last year. And that happens too. It's tough to be that dominant and that good defensively every year. But this is all on Deshaun. This is all on Deshaun. You got to be better. You got the money. This is what you wanted to be in a situation where everyone looked at you as the leader of that team. And he has not lived up to the contract. He has not lived up to the hype. And this is all on him. I don't think Stefanski is the one who suffers from this. I think it's all Deshaun.
Yep. I mean, because we're watching it. We're watching it every week. So shout out to Will Gordon. Yes, Will Gordon is about to be 5-0 in the fantasy football league. In his Jay-Z voice, I will not lose. Big shout out to Will Gordon. I haven't played Will yet, so I'm not a part of that 5-0. And my guys is on the come up now. We done got our act together. We've been, cruising through these last couple of weeks. So when we play Will, it's on. But it is what it is. Shout out to Will Gordon. Shout out to everybody that's in the Real Fans Real Talk Fantasy Football League. I think Will and there was one other person that's undefeated right now, but I'm being the giant killer this week, and I'm taking that one out. So it's only going to be Will left after this week. Eric, Sunday night game. Who are you taking?
The original line on this was Pittsburgh -2.5. I'm leaning on Dallas to cover and possibly win. I just think what I saw from Pittsburgh last week is a little concerning because that defense is really good, but they struggle to get to 20 points. And if they fall behind early, this could be a problem for them. Also, Dallas is going to air it out. Dallas can't really run the ball, so they're not worried about trying to run against that defense. They're really looking to air it out. And if Dak is able to connect with CeeDee Lamb a couple of times, I think they're going to get to 20 points first. So to me, whoever gets to 20 first is going to win. I like Dallas.
This is going to be the game where after we say they are who we thought they were, I got Dallas winning this game. And I think this is going to start to snap the Steelers back to who they are, which is not the worst team, but they're a team that still has a lot of chinks in the armor, a lot of things that they have to improve on both sides of the football. And although Justin Fields has played very well, they still have a long way to go. And I think this is going to be the game where it's like, all right, yeah, they're more this team than they were that 3-0 team. That's that started the season off. This is they're more middle of the pack, and I think we see that this week.
I agree. I think this is they got out to a hot start. They didn't play the best competition, and I use the same analogy with Buffalo. You get out to a hot start, you're not really playing the best competition in the league, and the record kind of deceives people into thinking you're better than what you really are. You've seen it with Buffalo; they've lost their last 2 weeks now that they've played better competition and better quarterbacks. I think the same thing happens with Pittsburgh. They're playing better teams in their schedule. So these are the games that we thought they were going to lose before the season. It's not going to change my mind just because they got to a 3-0 start.
Exactly. And last NFL, before we start talking a little bit of NBA, Chiefs Saints Monday Night Football. Do the Chiefs stay undefeated, or do we see another Saints upset?
Well, I like the Saints getting the points. Again, when we did the live as of Friday, I have it written down as 5.5. I like the Saints. Derek Carr historically has had some good games against the Chiefs when he was with the Raiders, and he beat the Chiefs a couple of times as quarterback there. The Chiefs haven't really covered the spread much over the last couple of seasons, so I think the 5.5 is safe. But I'm also a little worried about the injuries with Kansas City. They're down to their third and fourth string running back at this point. We know that no Rashee Rice, so that means that Xavier Worthy's got to show that he can step up in that role. Juju Smith-Schuster, who hasn't had much of an impact, got to step up. And Kelsey has got to build on what he did last week. So I like Kansas City to win. I don't think they cover the spread. Don't be too surprised if New Orleans puts a real scare into them and has a chance to win this game late.
Well, shoot, most of these games been close for the Chiefs.
Yeah, right.
They just know how to win, and they know how to finish games.
That's why I said if you're taking the spread, I would take the points with the Saints, because realistically, the Chiefs probably haven't covered a spread in a year and a half. When you look at a lot of the games, even last week, the opening line for the Charger game was 7.5. Will and I talked about it. I thought the Chargers had a legitimate chance to win that game, not just cover, but win, and they almost won that game. So the Chiefs have struggled to actually cover spreads the last I would say 20 games. People love the Chiefs, so people are gonna keep betting with the Chiefs.
I mean, that gentleman, who plays quarterback out there, who we've been telling people is on the Mount Rushmore. I think he got a little something to do with that. Just a tiny bit. Shout out to Patrick Mahomes. I do agree. I think they, leave out this week still being undefeated, and they're playing some great football, even with Patrick Mahomes once again losing receiver after receiver after receiver. Obviously, you guys should know by now, Rice is going to be done for the year. So, who was probably his top target thus far this season, he's no longer going to have him. One last thing before we do leave the NFL, Devontae Adams wants out of Oakland. Out of Vegas. He wants to leave the Raiders. Where does he land? And who gives him the best chance? What team gives him the best chance at winning a Super Bowl if he joins them?
Well, the easiest is Kansas City, but I don't know if Vegas would be willing to trade within the division. Kansas City, Buffalo, I think are great landing spots for him. I don't think Green Bay is going to go get him. I don't think the Jets make much sense because the Jets have other issues they got to figure out. The Jets, the O-line has been okay, but the fact that they can't run the ball to me is probably the most disturbing part. We thought Breece Hall was going to really benefit from having Aaron Rodgers, and it hasn't worked out. So I think Buffalo and Kansas City make the most sense in terms of trying to compete for a championship. And then if you're looking at the NFC,
you said Buffalo and Baltimore in Baltimore. You said the AFC.
No, Buffalo and Kansas City. Baltimore makes sense too. Yeah, if he lands in Baltimore, I think it makes sense and it works there. Though I don't think that's what Baltimore really needs. I think I would like to see Baltimore kind of go after another defensive piece, because even though they won today, the secondary has struggled, and you saw it again today. that was a shootout. That in the years past that normally isn't Baltimore style of play. But I'm thinking about teams that could use a legitimate number one receiver: Kansas City, Baltimore, and then the Rams. The Rams, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are both hurt and been out for quite some time. If the Rams want to be a serious playoff team, they're going to need a guy like Davante Adams.
See, I wouldn't mind the Rams because now I would feel like it would be like the year they brought over Odell and Von Miller, and just put it all on the table, win now, and we'll get back to it again. The only thing is they don't have anywhere near the defense that they had at that time, and I don't think for them to give up the draft picks to bring Davante Adams over, even though I think it was like they said they'd take a second and a third for Davante Adams, still they've got so many holes that they need to rebuild upon with that defense. I don't think it would be worth it for them to go for Davante Adams, even though he is a game-changing wide receiver, one of the best in football. But for them, I don't know, in the NFC, I mean, shoot, maybe even Dallas should try to make a run after Davante Adams, because when they were at their peak when they had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb there. That 1 year, that's when I saw like the best version of the Cowboys offense. So if I'm taking an NFC team, maybe them. Obviously, I don't want to go to Dallas, but I think he could be a huge boost for them. Other than that, in the NFC, I probably would say AFC, but again, I like him to the Chiefs, but again, I doubt they're going to trade him in the division unless they getting a deal. What is it? What they sell? They said that they sold the Manhattan Bridge for a bag of beans or something like that. Unless they get a deal like that, I don't think they trade Davante Adams to the Kansas City Chiefs. So that might be a window that's closed. But Buffalo could definitely use another legit number one wide receiver. We saw what Stephon Diggs did for them when he first got there, up until things kind of, the chemistry between him and Josh Allen kind of got a little messed up. And then obviously Baltimore, I think with how as well as this offense is playing, you add Davante Adams to that offense, I think we see Baltimore in the Super Bowl. Because
I think
that weapon that could get them over the hump.
For Baltimore, for Baltimore, I think it's a great move if you could make it. I'm not sure. I know the reports have come out, and I think I texted to you that I don't know how his salary would fit under their cap, because the reports have come out that teams have already said to the Raiders for this trade to happen, the Raiders are going to have to eat some of that cap number. So I don't know how it would work for the Ravens to make the trade in terms of financially. But yes, if he ends up with Baltimore or Buffalo, it probably changes how those teams are able to go after the Chiefs, and if they could beat the Chiefs in a playoff game. Dallas, it makes sense for all the wrong reasons, because Dallas would do it, like you said, to add star power and say, look, now we got another guy next to CD for Dak to throw to. And I can see them doing it. For Dallas, I don't know.
Isn't that a Jerry Jones move?
Right. It's a typical Jerry Jones, that he would fly his helicopter into the practice facility again to announce the trade. That's what he wants to do. So it makes sense from that standpoint. Right now, I mean, if I'm Dallas, I could understand why you would do it, because you would say, look, the division is still wide open. Philadelphia has not played well this season. The Commanders are a young team. You don't know if this is sustainable for the whole season. Maybe they might be a team that's really good the first half and then struggles the second half, whatever the case may be. So maybe you say, hey, let's go get Davante Adams and let Dak air it out and see if we could just win that way. But I don't know if that would make them better than Detroit. I don't know if that makes them better than Green Bay. I think those teams are a little more well-rounded. Yeah. But it will put them in a mix. I just think, to me, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, and in some sort of order, is probably the three best landing spots for Davante Adams if you're trying to play for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let me start jumping into these comments. Shout out to Ron Charles. Congrats to the Liberty for winning the series, beating the Aces. I know you two New Yorkers are excited. Come on, man. The way we talk about the Liberty, you know we're excited, man. I'm so happy that they are going to the WNBA finals. Big shout out to Sabrina Ionescu because she had a down. She games 1 and 2. She balled out. She had a down game. Game 3, that first game in Vegas, and I was saying that she's gonna have to play like she had been playing at home those first 2 games in order for them to not have this series come back to New York. She stepped up, hit 5 3-pointers, led the team in scoring. And then obviously Stewie, who didn't have a good series last year against the Aces, she did very well. She finished with 19 and 10, I think. Tonight she had the double-double. And everybody's just playing their role right now. Shout out to Vandersloot, who took the role and coming off the bench and embraced it. And I think it's worked out very well for the New York Liberty. And I'm excited to see this finals.
Shout out to the Liberty. They get their revenge from last year. They lost in 4 games last year to the Aces, and they get their payback. They were the best team all year in basketball and women's basketball, and they handled their business. And they were convincing in these wins. I thought today really showed what type of team they were, because I was scared that if you let the Vegas Aces hang around and you give them second life, that they could come back to haunt you. And they showed today. They won by 14 points. They dominated and they handled their business. So they are a championship caliber team. We knew that already because they were in the finals last year. Shout out to them, and I think they finished the job no matter who they play, whether it be the Sun or the Lynx.
Yeah, you don't want to give a team like the Aces any type of life. And I know you're going back home. We back in the Barclays Center. No, you do not want to give them any kind of life. They did what they were supposed to do, ending it tonight, and they looked very good. It was a convincing win. It wasn't like, they came down. So no, they looked like the better team in this series. For the third time in 4 games. I'm proud of them. Big shout out to the Liberty. I cannot wait. I feel like I'm getting that feeling, you know what I'm saying? I ain't going to jump too far out the window this yet, but I feel like, you know what I'm saying, New York might get the first championship in basketball in a very long time. And you know what? If it's the ladies that bring that trip to the city, I'm all for it.
I think it will be the ladies. Again, they're a phenomenal team. Last year, they had some struggles in the finals, and we talked about it. They didn't play well in those first 2 games of the finals, and by the time they played well in game 3, it was too late. You're already down 2-0 in the best of 5. It's tough to come back from that situation. This year, I thought they played with a certain sense of urgency right from the gate from game 1, and it showed. And then today, when they had the opportunity to say, "Look, let's put them away," only one of us need to go back to New York, and that's what they made sure of. Both teams didn't have to take that trip back.
Exactly. Let me go to this one. I thought Wilson's cast didn't give her much help, and that's wild because 3 of her teammates were USA players. Kelsey Plum played pretty well. She was on that Team USA roster as well. But yeah, they didn't get much from the bench and the rest of the starters. Listen, it's tough to win back to back, but to try to do it a 3rd straight time. And they've accomplished so much. A'ja Wilson has accomplished so much. The highest points per game for a WNBA player, 26.2. Breaking that 1,000-point margin. Another MVP, a gold medal. It's a lot. That stuff takes a toll on you. That's why there aren't too many three-peats. You know what I'm saying? But listen, I still tip my hat to the Aces, because going back to back and then making it all the way back to the semis, you know what I mean? Like it's still been an amazing journey for them, and they will be back. You can trust that. A'ja Wilson is still the best player in the WNBA. She will lead those ladies right back to the playoffs next season and have them right back in a position to compete for another WNBA championship.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's tough. The three-peat is really, really tough when you have that bullseye on your back and everybody's gunning for you every night. The injuries early on hurt the Aces. And then as they started to get themselves together, I think they were a little bit worn down. And Ron, yeah, you could say she had 3 teammates who were USA players, but that also means that's 3 teammates that didn't really get a break throughout the season. They had to consistently play when some of these other teams had the opportunity to rest up their girls, their women, I should say. for the second half of the season. So it's tough. You get worn down. It's a lot of basketball when you're making these deep playoff runs every year. It's a lot of basketball when you factor in the Olympic part of it. And then I think you saw it defensively last year. They were one of the better defensive teams. This year they weren't as good defensively, and it showed in the series as well. So you get worn down. You got the target, but I think now as they get an opportunity to reflect on what they were able to accomplish, they'll come back. They'll be hungry next year, and they'll be in the mix again next year, barring any injury. They'll be in the mix again.
And remember, they started off the season very slow. They turned it on, as veteran team too. They turned it on, later, but you could tell this. It just didn't feel like this season was going to be, one of those seasons. And ultimately, we see what happens now. But again, shout out to the Aces. You know what I mean? They still had a great run. Back-to-back chips is nothing to hold your head down about. Kyrie Thompson, what's going on, man? Who y'all liking the Lynx Suns series? As I'm writing this, it's 83 to 70 with 4:23 left. Well, going into the season, I did want the Sun to win, but that's only because Minnesota had got that late win over the Liberty in the regular season, so I did want them. But I think that I think they do. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, I think they get the job done. I do think Connecticut can win this series. I know they are going on the road, but they've won on the road. This was a big win for them to to hold on and even this series up. But I think they can go on the road and get the job done.
I got the Sun winning. I think they'll duplicate what they were able to do in Game 1 in Minnesota and win. So it'll be an East Coast Finals. I think that's my prediction. But either way, I like the Liberty to beat either one of these teams.
Yeah, I agree. Let me see. Shout out to Brandon Chambers. He says, with the NBA around the corner, give me a few teams you're looking forward to seeing. I actually think the Knicks and Timberwolves won the trade. What do y'all think? First and foremost, I'm Eric. I'm going to have to start going back into the archives and pulling things up because I know somebody has been talking about a Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns trade for damn near a season and a half. I've been talking about that, and now see that they finally pulled the trigger on that trade. I really like this move for the Knicks. No slight to Julius Randle because he played well for the Knicks. He was an all-star. But if we're being honest, since that all-star game, Julius Randle has kind of been on a downward tick. And then, I think him being back and forth with the injuries and, I don't, again, because I'm not in the locker room, but it just felt like he wasn't willing to give the reins of the team to Jalen Brunson as he ascended to being clear-cut the best player on the New York Knicks roster. I like this move for the Knicks. I'm hoping that Mitchell Robinson, who's actually the longest tenured Knick now, can actually get healthy because, I would love to see that 1-2 punch with him playing defense, Towns, holding him down on the offensive end. And then the rest of that lineup together with OG and Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson, they still have the depth. I really like this trade for the Knicks. I think the trade will be all right for the Timberwolves as well, but I just really think that this trade is going to make the Knicks and put them into championship contention.
I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. The trade for Karl Anthony Towns has been one of the worst kept secrets in basketball for quite some time because Leon Rose used to be his agent. Obviously, Leon Rose and the front office have a great affinity for guys that played at Kentucky. So they were flirting with this idea for quite some time, and they finally made it happen. I'll start with the Minnesota side of it since you talk, about the Knicks side, and then I get there. For Minnesota, I don't understand the trade at all because I do understand from the standpoint of people saying, hey, you have these two bigs that can't play together, but you were just in the Western Conference Finals, and you showed that it could work with the right line of adjustments. You basically traded Karl Anthony Towns for Dante DiVincenzo, who I like, but Dante DiVincenzo just had a career year, and Dante DiVincenzo is going to be your sixth man. Julius Randle is an expiring contract. They also already paid Naz Reid. Naz Reid is a guy who they actually like playing more next to Rudy Gobert. So Julius Randle is going to be the odd man out in this situation. His style of play doesn't fit with Anthony Edwards. He doesn't stretch the floor the same way that Karl Anthony Towns does. And like I said, I just don't see him being a fit because he's not a great defensive player either. So where do you find the minutes with him and Anthony Edwards to really make it work? That's going to be the struggle for Minnesota. And I think they messed up and they ruined a little bit of team chemistry that they built on last year when they made the Western Conference Finals. For the Knicks, from a purely playing perspective, it's a great trade. You're able to replace what you lack from Dante DiVincenzo as a shooter with Karl Anthony Towns, because Karl Anthony Towns could stretch the floor. He could do all those things. One of the biggest weaknesses on this Knicks team last year, and you saw it when they played the Pacers, nobody had to respect their five in terms of being an offensive weapon. You could sag off of Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein, especially in the pick and roll, because none of those guys could really hurt you from outside the paint. With Karl Anthony Towns, you can't do that. When him and Jalen Brunson get in a pick and roll, it's going to open up the lane for Jalen Brunson, whether he wants to get to the basket or kick out to open shooters in the corner. So it's going to be a great situation there. My only concern with Karl Anthony Towns is playing with expectations. You go from Minnesota, which has very few beat writers who cover the team, and there were never any expectations to be a winner, to come into New York now. Trip, you said this makes the Knicks legitimate title contenders. The moment the trade went down, Vegas has the Knicks with the second best odds to win the NBA Finals, only behind the Boston Celtics. So you're coming.
When I saw the trade went through, because I had said a couple of weeks ago, I didn't feel like the roster as is was a championship team. When I saw that trade come through, I said, "Oh, the Knicks can make it to the finals this year." That was the first thing I said.
Right.
The Knicks can make it to the finals.
That's my concern, because now you got to play with expectations. Now, one of the things you and I talked about in the playoffs, right, was Karl Anthony Towns was very up and down. Pause. Some nights he'll give you 25 and 12. The next night he'll go 4 for 16 and only grab 6 rebounds. In New York, you can't do that now because you are expected to be the piece that elevates this team to the next level. Jalen Brunson is already a god in the city. We know how people feel about Jalen Brunson. We know how they feel about Josh Hart. We know how they feel about OG. You talked about Julius Randle not being able to concede the reins. I thought he did concede the reins last year to Jalen Brunson, because if you look at that stretch when they make the trade for OG and they kind of have the official pecking order, the Knicks go 14-1 with OG before the injuries start piling up. And Julius Randle have kind of played his role of like, all right, it's Brunson's team and I'm going to play off of Brunson. I think Karl Anthony Towns would be okay as the second guy, but he's got to play with expectations now. He's got to know what it's like, because on a random Tuesday night where in Minnesota nobody would have been watching, everybody's watching the Knicks. And if you have those 4 for 16 nights against the Miami Heat or against the Boston Celtics or against the Philadelphia 76ers, the media is going to let you know about yourself. And he's got to be able to handle that. If he can do that, I think the sky's the limit for the Knicks. But if he struggles mentally with this, if he doesn't really adapt to the way that New York has really like embraced this team, because this is one of the few Knicks teams in a long time that the city has kind of rallied around.
I agree.
If he doesn't understand the magnitude of that, then it's going to be a problem. The regular season means absolutely nothing. And I'm going to say this right now. I'm a diehard Knicks fan. Everybody knows that. The regular season means absolutely nothing. If this team wins 60 games and they have the number 1 seed, I'm going to tell you again, it means nothing. Because if they don't at least get to an Eastern Conference Finals, and if they're not at least competing for championships, all that regular season-ish means absolutely nothing. That's my biggest concern with Karl Anthony Towns. Can he play up to the expectations?
Now, I hear you, Eric. I heard everything you said. I agree with a lot of that stuff you said. But my biggest concerns is that he stays out of Washington Heights and out of Dykeman. If he stays out of those places, if he stays out of both those places, the Knicks will win a championship. I'm telling you that right now. Put the stamp on it. If Karl Anthony Towns, if we don't see him hanging out in Dykeman or Washington Heights, that means he's focused and the Knicks will win a championship.
And I guarantee you he will be hanging out and at least
Damn it.
At some point. It won't happen right away because you know the season starts in 2 weeks. He's gonna be locked in. But he's got a lot of family in the area. Remember, he was born in Jersey. His mom was raised in New York. He got a lot of family in the area. And when we get close to the holidays, he starts getting invited over, and he got to make his rounds. And then next thing you know, he got that cousin that's like, yo, let me take you to the spot real quick. Yo, my people will go crazy if you showed up. It could get crazy.
All right, man. I'm just going like fingers crossed. I hope he does what he's supposed to do, man. Oh my goodness. Oh man. All right. I saw, hold on, we have one more thoughts on Bronny James' first NBA preseason game. Did they? Oh my goodness. You know what it is? Like I know we're gonna talk
Here
about
we
Bronny.
go. Here we
So
go.
we might talk about Bronny more than we talk about LeBron this year. But in regards to that game, I did see he had like 3 blocks. I thought that was good. But again, like Eric, you know, we don't even like judging players really until they get about 2-3 seasons into the league, because that's when you can make a real assessment. If they one, they have to make if they can make 3 years into the league, and then two, you know how well they've improved season to season. I know we're gonna get to Bronny James questions every week because that's what everybody's gonna talk about anytime the
Please,
Lakers
God,
play.
no. Please,
But
God, no.
it's gonna happen, Eric. It is. So you might as well just get ready for it. They're gonna blame us. They're gonna say we put the Bronny topics in the rundown every week, and that's gonna happen. But you know, I thought it was I thought he looked like a second round draft pick. Okay, but I do like that he had 3 blocks. He had the chase down block, even though he did have the turnover that led to him having to get the chase down block.
Thank you.
But listen. But I'll take 3 blocks from somebody who's probably not going to be getting minutes like that anyway when the season starts. You know, so I just want to see him improve. That's it. Like let the kid play. Let's see what he does. You know, like because realistically, if he's not getting minutes, we're not going to even know how to assess him anyway. You know what I mean? So it's not even like all right. Let's see how he does by the All-Star break because he's not going to be getting minutes like that. If he's getting 5 minutes a game, I'd be surprised. You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to even really be able to get a good evaluation on him anyway. It's just like the kid play.
Shout out to Brandon Chambers. Listen, man, let's not start this, please. I appreciate you as a supporter, but let's not start this. Like you said, we're realistically evaluating a second round pick that's not going to play much, as Trip just said. And keep in mind, one or two things are going to happen. Because if the Lakers expect to be competitive, Bronny James ain't playing. And if Bronny James is playing, then they're not going to be competitive. So it's not much to really discuss there. There aren't many thoughts on it. He's a second round pick. He went 1 for 6 in a preseason game. Yeah, he had the 3 blocks. He didn't show me anything that new or any part of his game that I thought was more exciting than anything else. I think they just want to get him his reps. I think they just want to try to get him as much developmental minutes as they can. I think the best thing for Bronny is to go down to the G League where he can kind of make his mistakes without having to live in the scrutiny of playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, because that's the other aspect of this as well. As you said, we're going to be talking about him every time he touches the court, but you're playing under the spotlight of you're a Laker when you're probably not ready to be in the NBA. So the best thing for him, I think, is to go down to the G League and kind of escape all of the attention from the regular team, I should say. And I don't have many thoughts on him. He went 1 for 6. He's a second round pick, and I'm gonna keep laminating the same point. If he's playing, that means the Lakers ain't doing good. And if the Lakers are doing good, he ain't going to be playing.
There you go. Enough said. Eric, let's get into the final thoughts segment because, we got the Sunday night game coming. And we both had a long week. So what you got for us, man?
So I want to start off by saying I know it happened early in the week, but thoughts and prayers to 2 legends in the sports world that passed away this week. Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Pete, we'll start with Dikembe. Obviously, a great humanitarian, a great ambassador for the game of basketball. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 8-time All-Star. He was the anchor on the first 8 seed to ever be the number 1 seed. He also went to the NBA Finals with the Sixers, and still fairly young guy in his mid-50s. So thoughts and prayers out to his family. Pete Rose, on the other hand, is a trickier topic for a lot of people. Because of what he's known for, gambling while being a manager of the Cincinnati Reds. And I use this point as we're into the Major League Baseball playoffs right now. In his recent documentary, which I watched, his lawyer and he had made a great point where they talked about the reason they've been fighting so hard to get him inducted is because they realized, he's 83 years old when he passed away, but this documentary had been being filmed the last couple of years, and they realized it's not much time left. And I don't want to be inducted after I'm gone. I want to have I want to have the opportunity to stand up on that stage with my son and with my former Reds teammates in that moment. Mm-hmm. And Major League Baseball, part of my language, Trip, y'all fucked up. Y'all should have handled this sooner. He is the all-time hits leader. And Major League Baseball for a long time, Trip, you know, one of my first appearances on Real Fans Real Talk was attacking Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball has this really bad issue of thinking they're holier than thou, and then kind of looking down on those that have made mistakes. I've said this for a long time. Pete Rose deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. The punishment far exceeded what took place, especially now when Major League Baseball advertises and they are partnered with every damn near gambling site that you could think of. And yet you still would not allow to lift the ban from Pete Rose and say, hey, look, we're going to induct him in because he's the all-time hits leader. And I say that to say this because I've been on this crusade for a long time. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame as well. Let Pete Rose be an example. Don't let this linger on so long that y'all can't acknowledge what Barry Bonds did for the game as well. So Major League Baseball do the right thing. But, you know, the most important, thoughts and prayers out to those families of two legends.
Condolences to those two legends, Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose. With that being said, make sure you guys are following us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter at Real Fan Talk, youtube.com/For the Fans Productions. That's the YouTube channel, facebook.com/Real Fans Real Talk. And of course, don't worry if you're not in the New York City area and you can't watch us on Horizon 43 Thursday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. You can watch from anywhere in the world. Just click on that website, realfansrealtalk.com. Click the red button on the homepage, and you can watch from anywhere in the world. And last but certainly not least, make sure you guys are subscribed to the two best podcasts moving. That's the Real Fans Real Talk and the Sanchez Show podcast. With that being said, for myself, Trip Young, my brother, my co-host, Eric Sanchez, a.k.a. Legend in Two Games, we up out of here. Peace.